the I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.
Taylor Tatsch, welcome, man.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to have you in because, obviously you live in Central Texas, so it was harder to kind of coordinate.
Yeah.
But we figured it out. But, yeah, man, I was super excited because I kept having artists in here who would have these great albums, and I'd go, man, I love your recording. And they're like, oh, Taylor.
Yeah.
Well, and I was like, I think Taylor's becoming my favorite engineer and studio owner now.
Well, that's really nice. Well, I'm a fan of yours.
Well, thanks,
so
man. Appreciate it. Yeah,
it's been really great.
But
so,
welcome. So
Thank you.
You were we were talking about a bunch of stuff before we even started recording.
Yeah.
So we were like, hit the record button. Let's go. But no, I'm interested in all of it. But talk to me about. You said that you just did a series with the Omni last night.
Yeah, the city of Fort Worth. I don't really know how it all came about, but there's something going on over at the Natural History Museum at that Omni Theater that's over there. And they had Cutthroat Finches, which is a band I've been a part of for a long time. They had us play at the Omni Theater. And, when I went when I was a kid, not a kid really, I was dating my wife at the time, so we were like in college, but it was 20 years ago still. But, when I went, it was an old school IMAX theater with a projector, and it was kind of, a 180 experience, and it was really cool. But now it's like the Sphere. I mean, it's like a LED. It's like a complete 360 immersive thing.
Awesome.
It's crazy. And so that opportunity came by for us to do it, and it exceeded like all of our expectations.
Wow. What were they projecting up there for y'all?
All the space stuff. So
that's cool.
We did a record called In Event of Moon Disaster, and it's a whole concept record. And the concept of it was that our drummer, Drea, she found she didn't find it. It was out there, but no one was really talking about it. But it was a speech that Nixon was going to deliver in the event that Apollo 11 astronauts did not come back. And it's a really touching speech and a very ominous, strange thing that he would have to deliver in the case of there's an explosion, but even worse, I think, is that they're trapped and they're not coming back, And so she found this, and we wrote a song around it, and then we decided to write a whole record around it, starting from, from the perspective of these astronauts that start, from, just before liftoff and what they do to prepare all the way to them getting stranded, and then the speech at the end. And so it was such a fun project to do, and I don't think it ever got its due. Like, we played the release show, and then it just kind of, went by. We started writing new stuff and all that, but I don't know whose idea it was. It might have been Sean's. Sean Russell, the singer. But I guess they approached him to play at the Omni, and so he said, well, let's do the whole album, the Moon Disaster album. And it's perfect because of the visuals and everything. So there's so much space stuff going on. And I'm not understating it when it, because I actually walked into the theater and saw a little bit of the Polyphonic Sprees immersive thing that they have going on there. And it is crazy. I mean, if you're on drugs, then I guess it would probably trip you out. I wasn't, so, but it was still pretty trippy. And the sound in there is amazing. Mark Randall, who is a great sound guy, live sound guy in Fort Worth, and runs a recording studio over there too. Just a top-notch guy. He did the sound. The staff there at the Omni was amazing. We sold it out, which I mean, we're a local band, and so to sell 300 tickets or whatever to fill this theater, and it was just a really cool event, and I just I'm still on cloud nine for it. It's one of those things like I've done some relatively higher profile gigs from time to time in my past, and you get those feelings that like, I'm not going to do this again, so savor this moment. And it's odd because it's a Fort Worth show, but you kind of got that feeling that this isn't going to happen again.
Yeah.
And it's really special. And so I was really excited to be a part of it.
I think that's a real hard thing for a lot of, I have a music background as well, and I think that's just a hard thing for artists in general to realize is you're always thinking about that next step.
Yeah.
Right? You've been in enough projects now that you kind of know when it's a moment that, like, let's savor this.
Right.
I think a lot of artists, you're doing so much work to make a show successful. You know, you're rehearsing,
Yeah.
you're doing your best to promote, you're trying to get friends out, you're trying to do all the stuff you can. And then when you're on the stage, you're thinking, okay, I got to give them a great show and blah, blah. And before you know it, the whole night's come and gone. And you weren't really a part of it. You were just going through the motions, you know?
Yeah, it was kind of a whirlwind. But it helps that I'm, freshly sober, finally quit drinking after a long time. And so I was able, and a lot of the band, Drea, the drummer, she's having twins right now. So she's not drinking. Sean quit drinking. I think he's kind of on and off, but he's sober. Everyone in the band all of a sudden is sober. And so instead of like going and playing a bar show, and stumbling through it and feeling at the end of the night like we didn't play a very good show, this was a situation where we were all pretty much like really appreciating what was going on and putting our best foot forward and feeling good about it. The rehearsal before that we had was fantastic. We had a good feeling going into it. The show went off without a hitch. So it's cool to actually be present for it.
Well, I'm a Dallas resident, and it's like I love what we have going on here, but I always get these stories from people where Fort Worth is always doing these cool one-off things like that.
Well, yeah, here Fort Worth does a lot, and they really, the city, the organizations, I know that Dallas does a lot of really cool things too, but I've been a part of the Fort Worth music scene for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I've been really blessed to be.
I love Dallas. We just have a different way of supporting our artists, which I don't necessarily agree with all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's tougher, right? It just seems like the Fort Worth, like the Square even, is such a different experience than say, Deep Ellum. You know? And it's not that anything's good or bad. It's just there's a different vibe about it. Yeah. And the Fort Worth one definitely still carries a lot more of that original, if you were going to use stereotypes of what Texas charm is, Fort Worth's going to have a little more of that than pockets of Dallas,
I guess so. I'm not super excited about stockyards and all that stuff, but the main thing that I really liked about Fort Worth is that I did live in Dallas as well for like 4 or 5 years. And I actually live right down the street over here in Little Forest Hills.
Yeah.
And I would go to the Cock and Bull all the time, right down here that was my place. But Dallas had, and still has, but Dallas had in the 90s a renaissance. They had their moment where everybody was getting signed. And so, when I came to Dallas in the early aughts, a lot of the people that I came in contact with were part of that wave and really trying to get back to that wave and really having a lot of nostalgia about that wave. And, some of it kept new bands from being a part of it because they were really trying to, keep whatever 90s band, keep it going. And, it's not like it was and, and all that kind of... When I went to Fort Worth, they didn't have that history of like some big wave that came out of Fort Worth. And so it was a lot more supportive. And so I found my roots in Fort Worth a lot easier.
I never really thought about that way, but I think you're dead on because, I grew up northeast of here out by like the Wiley area. And so we'd always come in for things.
Right.
So I've been coming into Deep Ellum since I was a teenager. And you're right. It's like, I guess I didn't realize that when I was kind of in my heyday of loving music, like, before you have a job and all these things and you can just love music, go to concerts and do all this stuff. It's like you're kind of, that's usually a lot of people's big point of music, right? What are those stereotypes that like by the time you hit 30, you don't listen to any more new music and all that stuff? For a lot of people, that's the way it is. And so I didn't realize I was kind of experiencing that Dallas boom a little bit, I guess, but that definitely was. And I've always seen that. I've always been outside of, I'm not part of the Deep Ellum community or anything.
Right. And I never really was allowed to,
and
they're these gatekeepers,
yes, You have these Deep Ellum, I don't know not purist, but like, they feel like it's their area and that Deep Ellum should always be a certain thing.
Right.
And it's like Deep Ellum's been here for 100 years now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's never going to be one thing. Yeah. It's always going to morph.
It's so funny to see it online. And I mean, I don't want to talk bad about Dallas or Deep Ellum, but it's like, it's either too much crime or it's too nice.
Right.
And either way, people are bitching about it.
Yeah.
It's like it's either too seedy or too nice. And it's like, well, where the hell's the happy medium?
And because I remember like when I live near, I live closer to the lower Greenville area. And have you seen kind of the transformation that had? Like in the 90s and 2000s, they had a lot of, they had a lot of bars. They had some clubs. It was like there were some 18 and up clubs. and they had more crime. It was a little more dangerous.
Yeah.
And then whoever came in and kind of, people would say they gentrified it, but the neighborhood still stayed the same. They just literally took that main street of Greenville, put better businesses in, put like wider, nicer sidewalks, made parking, and they made it more of a livable area.
Right.
So if you lived in the neighborhood, you could walk down to a grocery store, you could walk down to a restaurant. Mm-hmm. I think it's better.
Right.
And I think Deep Ellum in like that 90s, 2000s era, when it was a little more dicey, that was part of it. It wasn't an area necessarily that a lot of people would want to live in. So it made it I feel like it made it harder for businesses to stick around. So now they're building up apartments and doing all these things to make it a neighborhood. And people are like, the apartments are ruining everything. And it's like, well, if you
can't make everyone happy.
Exactly. If you want it to be thriving, you got to have people there.
Yeah.
And if you make it a livable neighborhood, these venues and stuff are going to have a better chance of surviving. Because if I'm going to be the person where it's like, I want to move to an area where the action is, where I can go see a band, I can go to the bar. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do.
Right.
But, if they find out there's like a corporate developer or something, they're like, no, get them out of here. It's like, well, I hate to say it, but who do you think has the money to build these apartments?
Yeah.
It's always that give and take.
It's tough.
It can't just be cool artists owning everything. That doesn't work either.
Well, because they don't largely have the money to make it nice.
Right.
Unfortunately.
You have to have a little bit of business sense to get it going.
Yeah. But that's an age-old thing,
And I criticize it because I love it. I always want it to do well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it is funny watching from outside of like, yeah, I want it to be a thriving neighborhood that I also don't get shot in. So we got to find that balance, but we got to be happy with everything kind of blending in.
Yeah.
I never kind of related that gatekeeping though to what you're talking about. How we did have quite the boom here, and I guess when you're living in it, you don't really appreciate it sometimes.
Well, it even extended to the recording studios too, and who bands worked with, and my band, crappy band from from 2000, I took to.
What was the name of it?
I'm not going to tell you what the name of it was. You can find it.
Okay,
all right. I hope you can't. I hope you can't. But
damn it, come on.
But anyways, we went down to Bass Propulsion Labs, and Bass Propulsion Labs was a recording studio started by Todd and Toby Pipes from Deep Blue Something, and who are dear friends of mine. And so I went down there with my band because a lot of the bands that I liked at the time were starting to work down there, Flicker Stick being one of them. And so I did, we did our little EP there. And so Todd and Toby grabbed me and the bass player, Nolan Teese, to be session musicians down there at BPL. That turned into us being assistant engineers. And, I ended up getting a radio TV degree, RTVF degree at UNT. So I used that to get internship credit and all that stuff. Basically, I just hung out at the studio, and so did Nolan. And so much that we just got an apartment across the street from the studio. But because they were in Deep Blue Something, which, of course, I wasn't here when they were making it big. I was in high school, it was so funny to hear the cattiness that went on between other bands who were upset, that had success in their own right, and they're upset at Deep Blue, and they're not authentic enough, or they were, and I was like, this is so silly. Like all these, there's like 5 bands that made it in 94, and they all did all the talk shows, and they went on major tours, and they sold millions of records. And why can't they all get along? As if they're still acting like they're in high school,
Yeah.
And
artist in competition, right?
Right. Yeah. And I kind of felt like, man, y'all should just be happy for each other.
Yeah.
Why is this, And so me being a young engineer, being at BPL, even the new bands kind of went into camps. Like this band's recording over at Last Beat, or this band's recording over here. And all these, it's just so catty and just like, and then you're either in with the Observer or you're not in with the Observer. And we'd release records that someone at the Observer doesn't like Deep Blue Something, or doesn't think that they're authentically Dallas enough, or thought they're
sold
friends
out with the person who told them a story.
Yeah, and it's just so hard to get good press. And we were making good records. We had good people. I don't know. And then when I went to Fort Worth, it was like they didn't have any of that at the time. Now they're starting to get a little bit of that. But
sure.
As every scene does, is
It's a natural part of the growth.
People get bitter and they, whatever.
Well,
it was so much more open in Fort Worth. When I went over there, I just had an opportunity to work with a lot of people.
Yeah. I love it. I think if I left Dallas, it would end up being, I wouldn't want to move to a suburb of Dallas. I'd rather just stay in Dallas. I think if I moved, it'd have to be a bigger move like that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like that's part of every scene. It's like these artists all want to make it.
Yeah.
And, it's like you can be the most talented, you can write incredible music, you can have an incredible live performance, and there's still an element of luck to it.
Oh, totally.
There's still an element of chance.
Huge, yeah. It's not a meritocracy, I'm going to tell you right now.
And, there's no path. Like, be sure to play this, play that, and then you'll make it. And so anytime someone does make it with a little bit of that chance, everybody else has got to hate on it because of the jealousy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you're all buddy-buddy until someone makes it. And then
right, because then it's like, well, why won't you let me be your opener then? You made it. We played. And it's like, that's just not how it works sometimes.
It's not. It's so much. Once you sign with a label, of course, as soon as you get above the level of independent, local independent, so many people get involved that don't know anything about music, that don't have your best interest at heart, that are only worried about, their elevation through the ranks of their record label, or it's just not, and so it's so out of your hands at that time. So I try to tell bands that come through and they're so excited about getting signed because, in the 90s or the early 2000s, without streaming, if you weren't signed, you really didn't have a chance. There was no way that you were going to get on the radio other than like one play on the Adventure Club, or some local show on, and so that was the thing. You want to get signed. Nowadays, it's like, man, resist it as far as you can because you can really have a lot of reach without signing.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you sign and you're accepting that money, so much leaves your hands. They can do almost whatever they want to your band because they hold the cards.
Did you ever see a series on vinyl? I mean, on HBO called Vinyl? It was one season and it was canceled, but it was incredible. Like I think maybe because I love music, I thought it was really, really good, and maybe the average public, whatever. Had some huge names in it. Actually, it had Ray Romano in it as well.
Cool.
But some big actors, and there was one scene in that always sticks with me where they're talking about signing a band. They're working at a label. The label's had some hits in the past. They're struggling to sign new talent. It's in an era probably like the 70s or something. So lots of drugs. They're still doing the studio stuff of like, if we've got this person that we want to sign, we're bringing in drugs, booze, women to this, and we're trying to hook them on this hook and get them in. Yeah. And these people are talking about like, well, I mean, you don't have any money. How are you spending all this money on this stuff? You're going to go bankrupt or something. And he just breaks down how like, no. We gave them this money. Right, but we're tracking every little dime that's spent.
Oh God!
They get it. If we go buy them a Pepsi from the gas station, we're putting it on, and we're marking it up this percentage. We're marking that Pepsi up 20% or something.
Yeah. Not only that, I don't think people understand. The bands don't understand how that works. As far as the splits, say if you do an 80-20 deal, and it's becoming more known now that the internet's out there and people like us are talking about it and exposing it for what it is. But they may spend $100,000 or $1 million on your band, and every dime of that is going to come out of your 10%. It's not coming out of the big pot. That it's every dime of that is coming out of the band's 10%. If it's or a 20%, if it's an 80-20 or a 90-10 or whatever it is. Before the band, now the revenue comes in and the label gets paid, already starts getting paid their share. But the entirety of what they spend on you, you don't see any of that money until you pay it all out of your 20%. And so that's how you get those instances where the more records that you make, the deeper in debt you get. The only way to really get out of it is to sell millions and millions and millions of copies. And
which is now becoming impossible.
Oh yeah. But on that whole time you're thinking, well, the label's in the same boat as us. They're fronting the money. They're getting paid back the minute that a CD or record or whatever medium it is, they're getting paid back the minute that gets sold. Meanwhile, you're paying for the entirety of the investment out of your small portion, and you're just never going to get out of that hole, unless you're the biggest thing ever. And in fact, even when you're the biggest thing ever, a lot of these artists, whether it's, Petty or Prince or whatever, realize they're still in the hole and then finally have the clout to reorganize their deal to something where they can actually make some money off their record.
Yeah, Prince's famous name change is, a great example of just like, oh, well, I'll break the system then because I'm Prince. But
and you can make money off touring, and you can make some money off of publishing, but a lot of times in a band there's one writer. If the writer is not splitting writing with everyone in the band, there's revenue coming in for the writer, but the rest of the band's fucked. I
kind of wanted to ask you about that because you've been a touring guitarist for acts that aren't yours.
Yeah.
And how is your not your experience with the individual acts, of course, but your experience? Like, I have a friend, Mike Tuck, who's an incredible guitarist, and he plays more on the country circuit. And he hasn't never told me any specific numbers, but you can kind of gather, you know, and you think like, man, you're so talented, you're so good, but you're definitely not getting a cut like the main person is.
Oh yeah.
And so I always wonder, how do these hired gun musicians make it? Because you can only make a lower tier of money for 5 or 10 years before life kicks you in the nuts, and you got to make some choices about, do I want to stay in the music industry, right?
Yeah, it's a young man's game.
Yeah, but I mean, why wouldn't some of these guys on the road get paid a little bit more to where, I mean, wouldn't you want to say, like, I've had Taylor as my guitarist for 15 years.
Yeah.
I don't play with anyone else. He knows the game here. We're good to go.
Yeah.
Like, why don't they do that?
I mean, from the artist perspective, they have a balance sheet that they have to, they have to know a predictable cost, of what they're spending. And, there's a lot of money that goes out the door, for touring. And, that's a cost that they want to know how much that's going to be, I think, a band has to, or a hired gun or whatever, just has to have an open conversation with the artist, or I guess the management. So a lot of times the artist doesn't want to talk about money unless it's good news, which I experienced that too. It's like, as soon as you get a raise, the artist comes in like, hey, I'm paying you guys this. And the minute the check doesn't clear, then it's like, don't talk to me about money, And you're like, wait, just 1 second here. You actually are cutting the check. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
well, in your experience, did you feel like the pay was usually, did you feel like, yeah, I'm getting what I'm worth here?
No, but my first real touring experience happened with Ryan Cabrera in 2004, I guess. And I was playing in my crappy bands, and I was also being a sideman just locally, playing for people that came through the studio and a lot of fun things like that. And my buddy Casey Swink, who was in a band called Odaby back then, that kind of had a little buzz going. They were kind of acoustic, folky, but they were friends with Cabrera, who was in a band called Rubik's Groove at the time, who was also kind of acoustic and folky, kind of more Dave Matthews. But Ryan was dating Ashley Simpson. He was connected in through Joe Simpson, of course, with Jessica, and then the Linda Septian thing that was happening. A lot of big singers went through her, and there was a thing happening in that little scene, and so he, Ashley Simpson was in his music video. He was on her MTV show that she had at the time. So, there was just a definite direction of where he was going, and he asked Casey Swink to be his bass player. And Casey Swink recommended me to be the guitar player, and we kind of just went around, recommending the young musicians that we enjoyed from different bands. Like, I got Ethan Kaufman from the Broadcast and the band, the local Broadcast. There's another bigger band called the Broadcast, but there was a local band called the Broadcast that was really cool. And he's still a dear friend of mine.
While this was going on, were you thinking
the money was not good?
So were you thinking like, well, what a great chance to just play some incredible shows with a rising artist? Or, I mean, how were you viewing it at that time?
The pitch to me was, the bus is leaving. Do you want to be on it? And that's what Casey says. Like, Ryan is starting his tour, opening for Jessica Simpson in New Orleans at the arena there. So the first show we play is going to be in a sold out arena. And then that's what we're going to be doing for at least the next year and a half. And me being 23 or 22, hell yeah, that's exactly what, And I think anybody else in my shoes would be stupid to not take that opportunity. Now they could say, well, Ryan Cabrera's not my bag, or it's not the type of music that I want to play. But I swear, if you're 22 and someone says you're going to be in a bus for the next year and a half, and it's not on your dime, it's on somebody else's dime. Yeah. And the pay wasn't great, but it was, it was fun. But the thing, I got some amazing experiences out of that I'm, again, never going to be able to do some of the stuff again. Some of the places we played and the opportunities we had were once in a lifetime things. And
what was that first big stage? You decide I'm gonna work with Ryan. We're gonna, the first stop is at what spot?
It was in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I think we went into it was probably Universal Rehearsal and had some rehearsals. Maybe I don't even know.
First show.
The first show was in New Orleans at the Enormo Dome, whatever it is, at the arena.
So do you remember those first?
The Charlotte Hornets. They used to be the Charlotte Hornets, and they were the Pelicans, or I don't know what the hell they were, but where the basketball team played. And we're walking out on stage in front of an arena. Yeah. And it's like, this is exactly what ever since I saw, that video, Bohemian Rhapsody, where they cut in all the live footage and Brian May's walking down there with his curly cable and like, that's what I want to do. And it's like happening. And I'm like, this is going to be great, know? And
is that moment still soaked in? I mean, that's got to be just an incredible...
Yeah, I mean, that was the start of, we did almost every arena, in the country, and sheds, they call them sheds, like amphitheaters like Starplex or whatever it is. Arenas and sheds was, we opened up for Jessica doing that, and she was a sweetheart. Everyone, she was getting a lot of shit because of the
Saturday Night Live moment.
Well, that was Ashley. That was
that's right. I got them mixed up there for a second.
Yeah,
Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica
right.
had she had a reality TV show where they kind of made her out to be a ditz, like she didn't know whether tuna was chicken
of the sea or whatever. Yeah,
all that stuff. The times that we got to hang out with Jessica and Nick at the time, they were just the nicest people.
Sure,
and very gracious and asking us questions.
Yeah. Now we all know how deceiving editing on a reality show is, but in the prime of that reality TV boom, we were all like, what an airhead, what an idiot.
Yeah.
It was
they're telling
easy.
them to say those things.
Of course, now we know the game.
Yeah, we had an MTV show too, called Score. It ran for 20 episodes, only ran once. It wasn't very good, but it was the concept was excellent. It was with Ryan was the host, and he was helping contestants where it was two guys, a lot of or girls. I think it was evenly split, but two guys. He was helping them write songs so that they could win over a girl. They were kind of this competition, and she picked not based on what the guys look like or anything, but they're based on the song. Sounds pretty amazing. And but we as his backing band were the ones working up the songs, which was a whole lot of fun. And we shot in Burbank. It was really, really cool. And I remember you only have so much time to shoot these episodes, and the band thought it was our job to shut the hell up and try to make the songs as quickly as possible and as good as possible. And once that started happening, the producers would come over and like, this is going too well, actually. We need conflict. There's no conflict going on here. Can you tell him to piss off, or can you tell him fuck you? And we all of a sudden we're like, we're not actors. Like now we kind of have to act like, and I don't think they ever really used much of that. It was more like reaction shots. It's like they're like, okay, can you make a face like this sucks?
Like, what the hell is that?
Right,
I'm not playing that.
And then they would cut that in to, the poor singer, playing something, and then they would cut to Casey going, and it's just so contrived, and
they ask you a question about lunch, and you're like, I didn't really like that. And then they cut that into the song.
Exactly. But they're paying you like an actor, or sort of paying you. I mean, you had to join the Actors Union to do it, to be on TV. They're not really paying you like an actor, but the union takes a huge chunk of that. I don't know. It's like I said, you get above this independent, person to person, where everyone's focused on art. You get above that, it is a land of snakes.
Yeah.
and no one gives a shit about the art anymore. It's really hard to find people that care about the music, that care about people.
Yeah.
It's been proven to me time and time again.
Well, especially with the internet now, like, you know, you can get all these people who have never done anything having, you know, a TikTok, a YouTube channel, or Instagram or something where they're telling you the secrets of the music industry.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, first of all, it's always changing anyway.
Yeah.
All these things that you think worked 10 years ago probably don't even matter anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know the answers. That's
exactly.
For sure. Yeah.
But they're, you know, they're baiting you with all this stuff. So then you get people thinking, oh, if I just do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's like, hey man, I hate to tell you this, but the root of it is your music. It's like, you've got to have great music.
Right.
You've got to have...
That's what I like to believe.
You know, you've got to have... Well, and then you've got to have discipline to like, hey, man, as much as it seems like it's not worth it, the only way to get people to hear your music now is you're going to have to play a lot of music.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have to go play shows and do things.
Yeah.
And even that might not be enough.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like at the beginning of it and at the end of it, you're just going to have to love writing and playing these songs and then hope you get a little bit of that luck in there as well.
Yeah.
And just accept that I might write this incredible album and it won't do anything, but I'm going to love it.
You first and foremost have to do it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If it ceases to be about yourself at any stage of the game, you're going to be massively disappointed, because it's so cutthroat and it's not a meritocracy. You could make the best record. I've made so many records that I thought this is, at the time, like, this is the best thing I've done. And then nothing happens with it. And it's not because it's not a good record. Of course, you question yourself, like, was it any good? No, it was absolutely good. But there's so many factors that go into getting people to hear it, getting, write-ups or just getting to that next level. And, very little of it has to do with the actual quality of the music.
Right.
Right. Some of it does. That's what keeps me going, is I keep feeling like that it does, that you at least have to start with a good product.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I believe, and that's what keeps me going.
I think it shows the recordings that I know for a fact that you've done, like the artists that I've gotten to talk to. That's what started peaking out as I was going, like two good examples, for instance, of just very different records where they felt like they were tailored, pun intended, to to each album. But like, Hayden Miller's record versus Garrett Owens' record.
Right.
Just two totally different styles. And, I've been fortunate to go kind of record as a band in places. I never worked in studios.
Yeah.
My background, I went through audio engineering school at Collin County.
Cool.
I don't know if you're familiar with that school. It's like a little community college over in Plano. But they had like a certificate program or something,
Yeah.
So I played music and I was thinking, what am I going to do for a career? Let me dive in on this. And I got in there and it taught me a lot to be able to do something kind of on this level. Right. And from that program, you could definitely go work in a studio and become a great engineer.
Right.
But what it really taught me was like, wow, you kind of have to be obsessed with the nuances of being an engineer if you want to be a really good engineer. And then a lot of times too, you got to put aside so much of your bias about music, right? You got to look at music as this very subjective, I don't have to love something to still make it great,
Right.
And so my peers that were really excelling, that's what it was. They could get past their taste in music.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, as you know, in the beginning, you're not recording all the bands you love. You're
still not.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like you're taking on work to keep the studio alive.
Yeah, it's definitely, I can be more choosy now.
Yeah.
And my clientele is much better now.
Yeah. And so
early on, it's of course, early on, you're not very good. I'm not very good.
Right.
And
it's going to take a lot of records.
Right. And so the blame for making a poor record is not squarely on the artist.
Yeah.
I take a lot of blame for that one too, especially early on.
Well, and that's the point I was kind of getting to. It's part of what I realized, I was like, I think I really like the way Taylor records music and produces these albums.
I really appreciate that.
Is because I would see a record like Hayden Miller's where you can tell like this is really tailored towards what Hayden was trying to do. And then you see a record with Garrett Owen, and you go, this was really tailored towards what Garrett wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know, and then when I find out it's coming from the same studio, it's like, okay, so they don't have here are our presets, let's go. Like some
I
places
can't stand
do.
that, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Right.
a lot of people work that way. And that's
They
when I
do.
started to go, I think
Yeah.
I really like Taylor. Like, you know?
Well, I
So
appreciate that.
It's great work,
Yeah.
man. Those
Thanks.
albums just sound phenomenal.
Thanks.
And
Thanks.
it didn't sound like, oh, this came out of AudioStyles.
Yeah.
It sounded like, wow, Garrett, or wow, Hayden's new record
Yeah.
sounds great.
I try to cast a wide net. I'm a fan of a lot of different music, pun intended. And you know, my record collection, actual, you know, vinyl, because back in the mid-aughts, you could go to Half Price Books and buy all the shit that you wanted for $2 a record. You know, so I tried to get as much music that I could from the '60s to the '80s, you know, on vinyl. And me and my roommate would sit in the apartment after sessions and, you know, get high or whatever and listen to these records, you know.
Yeah.
And they would be burned into my head. And really that was my it was more valuable than college or whatever, that education, to know that, like, you know, to have these sounds in your head. That way when someone comes in and says, oh, I really like Neil Young, that I kind of know what that sounds like. Or I really like Ultravox, and I know what that sounds like. You know, I like Tortoise, or I like Dave Matthews Band or whatever. You know, even though I may not like some of these bands, I know what that sounds like, and I have a roadmap. Instead of just I'm the metal guy, or I'm the country guy, or I'm the electronic guy, I really try to cast a wide net, because not only are you able, or am I able to kind of get in the ballpark a little bit quicker with a band, but when they get stuck, you know, in their own style, then I'm able to bring an influence in that maybe they haven't heard. Like, hey, I'm going to play something on guitar that's like Catherine Wheel. Have you heard of Catherine Wheel? You know, like, oh, no, I haven't heard of that. Or like, do you like Radiohead? Oh, yeah, I like Radiohead. Well, this is kind of that, you know.
Yeah.
So,
which is exactly what you need in those moments, because
yeah, I think that's important for
a studio is so
engineer,
daunting as a musician.
Right.
You know, it's like, even though you know it's worth it, it's a lot of money. It's
Yeah.
a finite amount of time.
Yeah.
And they've put all this pressure on, like, hey, we're going to the studio this month.
Yeah.
It's got to be, this is everything we've put everything on this.
Right.
And so having that life raft every now and then from an experienced, not only engineer, but someone who just loves music.
Right.
Someone who can just be like, you ever heard this album? It seems like you're going kind of this lane. You want something like this?
Yeah.
And then they go, yeah, I couldn't articulate that. That's it exactly, you know?
Yeah, and the artists get stuck trying to chase what happened 2 years ago, or to what happened 6 months ago. And so, especially early on when I was, and it still happens now, but they'll say, oh, this record that just happened, I want to do something like that. I want to do the Killers, you know. I love the Killers sound. Can we do a Killers, you know? And that is a losing battle. You're not going to make what just happened and make it sound exactly like what just happened.
And succeed.
And succeed. I mean, even if you cop that sound's already out there, and it's happening right now. So the best you're going to be is a copycat of what's already out there. And so I always, you know, when someone has an influence that just happened, we want to do something like this, then I think of that band and what their influences are. So if you're thinking Killers and electronic, you know, okay, well, let's go back in electronic music a little bit. Or if maybe not electronic, but the synthesizer things, you know. Or if it's like, we want to sound like Foo Fighters. Okay, well, what kind of rock and roll was kind of influencing Foo Fighters? You know, where, you know, and so you go back a few forks in the road, and then you can create a new path, you know. And that, I think that helps an artist, rather than saying, okay, well, let's remake the color and the shape. Of course, now it's 20 years old or whatever, so now you actually can reference that and try to. And if you try to remake Color and the Shape, it actually may sound new because it's been long enough. But, you know, if you're trying to do that in 2000, try to remake Color and the Shape that happened in 97, you know, then what the hell are you doing? You know?
Yeah, I remember I had a moment where one of the bands I was in was a 3-piece punk rock band.
Yeah.
And we had the opportunity to open for Rancid down in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And so that was like huge we were just starstruck, all the things, you know. That was like, as it keeps splashing in a unique way.
I know, yeah. I'm so glad this is being filmed.
Nothing's on your shirt. It's good.
A drinking problem.
See, we should have had beer.
I know. It made a lot more sense.
But I remember, I'm not sure how familiar you are with that band, but they have a really good bass player named Matt Freeman who just plays such a unique style.
Right.
Especially at the time.
Yeah.
No punk rock bass players were playing the way he was, where he's just kind of walking all over the fretboard.
Yeah.
And, it's like I got the chance to bump into him, and I always wondered, it's like, well, he's the guy that all these bass players are copying now in these punk rock bands.
Right.
And it's like, but you kind of just, to me, it felt like, did you just pull that out of thin air,
Yeah.
And, I had my little starstruck moment where, like, I'm at the back of the venue tuning up a guitar, and he's walking by going to the bus, and I'm like, you freeze up, and I was like, hey. And he's like, hey.
Yeah.
And I was like, what kind of shit did you listen to growing up?
Yeah.
And he just, like, takes a drag on a cigarette and is like, a lot of the Stones.
Yeah.
And he gets back in his bus. And I was like, never in a million years would have guessed that answer. But then you think back to when he was a kid, and it's like, yeah, why wouldn't it have been the Stones?
Right.
And then you're thinking, okay, so he did just love music. That, like, what drove me crazy about that, what I hated it at first, but then I loved it later, was the realization of, like, here's this mega man in punk rock music, and punk rock fans are so like, I only love punk rock music. And it's like, yeah, man, but your idols, they all listen to, like, classic rock and shit.
Yeah.
And it's just, they just found their lane. If they had tried to model all that classic rock stuff, it never would have been this band.
Yeah.
And so then you realize the beauty of those differences of, like, oh, you can be influenced by whatever you want to just make your own original thing. But
yeah,
I think it's so hard as a young band to get over that hurdle of, like, you're never going to be the people you love. You got to find this corner of your own stuff.
Yeah, you really do. So, like, for instance, if a band came in and said, we really like Blink-182, and of course, if this was when Blink-182 was hitting and they said, well, I really like Blink-182, we want to do something like that, then I wouldn't necessarily go listen to the Blink-182 records. I would go listen to NoFX and go listen to, some earlier punk stuff so that I could maybe get some of that edge that was rounded off with Blink-182. Like, let's get a new path here.
Yeah.
And with Garrett, Garrett is, such an insane writer and musician that he really was very nice to let me go down different paths as far as musicality, like bringing in an influence here, bringing an influence there, different kind of sounds. So was Hayden, of course he had Nolan Robertson with him, who they were working as a team pretty much. They had gotten the songs to a really good spot before they even came in. Nolan is a great orchestrator on guitar, so a lot of those Queen,
I was going to ask you if that was you or somebody else playing those licks.
It was largely him.
Yeah.
Now, as far as engineering it and stuff, I mean, I knew exactly what he was trying to do Brian May stuff,
right,
or David Bowie stuff, and so we were, when it came to EQing those things, then okay, this guitar sounds, it's going to be heavy in this frequency range, and this guitar is going to be heavy in this frequency range. Because like when you go to, listen to Bohemian Rhapsody, for instance, low hanging fruit, but towards the end when you hear all the different, I mean, there's like four, and it's the same amp, it's the same guitar, but it's four different guitar sounds, and they're really being aggressive with the EQ, or it's like moving the wah pedal a little bit, and so those types of things really informed how we did, the guitar things. Now he had all that orchestration pretty well done, but that whole process was super cool because it was just the three of us. The guitar player from Dead Vinyl, Tyler, came over and played a little bit as well towards the end, but Hayden played most of the drums. I played drums on one track. I don't know who played bass on it because we were just whoever had the idea in hand. That Nolan played some of the bass, I played some of the bass. I think Hayden played a bass track. And it was a departure for Hayden because, I mean, previous to this, I had worked with Dead Vinyl. There's no piano in Dead Vinyl. I had no idea he played the piano.
Right.
And so, but he's playing, all these songs are piano driven. So it's a combination of like, and he wanted it to be old school. So it's a combination of Elton John and Queen, and we're doing our best to
Dude,
get
y'all
those
nailed
types
it.
of sounds.
The first thing I thought when I heard it was like, whoa, we've got a little throwback to Elton John here.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like you're ripping off Elton John. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's filtered through him.
Yeah,
you know.
it's his own stuff, but I was just thinking,
Yeah.
I had no idea this guy from Dead Vinyl had like an Elton John influence.
Yeah.
You know, and, before once he came on the podcast, we talked about it, but yeah, I just had no idea, and I was thinking, it always makes me happy to hear artists go down those different lanes.
Yeah.
And go, oh, God, you have some depth to you. That's awesome. That's great. You know?
He's an extremely deep artist, and if you just saw Dead Vinyl, where he's just the front man, I think you'd be missing how, the scope of Hayden's talent. And I don't think I've witnessed the scope of Hayden, much as I haven't witnessed the scope of Garrett's talent either.
Both of those guys, I mean, I've got more experience. I've had more conversations with Garrett.
Yeah.
And, that brings me to one of the things I really want to talk to you about is what is your thought process as someone in the studio? You're trying to make the best record you can make. You're trying to help these artists put out what their vision is of this music, right? And we're thinking studio, okay, which I think is great. And we're going to make a great record. But then how do you think about how that artist is going to be able to balance that with live performance, right? Are they going to be able to get the musicians? That never crosses your mind?
No.
Why not? Like, give me your philosophy.
If they say that it's a consideration, then fine. Then I'll have that in the back of my mind. But I'm a Beatles fan. Beatles, like, to me, the top 5 records that have ever been made. We're rotating some Beatles records. And then you start with everyone else. Like, that's, we're, Abbey Road and Revolver and Rubber Soul and, and Sgt. Pepper, we're starting with those 4. And then literally everybody else is down the line. That's how I feel about it. And so the diversity on those records is something that's always been a benchmark for me, that they were not concerned about pulling the stuff off live. And it freed them up to make creativity happen. It wasn't a consideration that they were going to play any of this stuff live. After 64 or 65. When I think they stopped touring in 65. So Rubber Soul was like the last one that I guess maybe they played some of Revolver live. I don't have the history down completely. But they started approaching the studios like, we're not going to play this stuff live. Let's just make the most interesting record that we can make. And that's what I want to do and with Garrett, I know he's not going to go out there with a Mellotron every night and, and pull off the orchestration we're doing, But, man, what are we doing this for? Are we doing this to make something beautiful? Or are we doing this to promote a show, And to some people, like if it's Texas country or whatever, and it's a live based thing. They're going to have people coming to the show, and that they're going to want to be able to pull the song off, and I totally get that. But some artists, talking with Hayden, it's like it's going to be a to do to get someone, he's going to have to pay a piano player. He's going to have to, he's going to have to pay a drummer. He's going to, to pull off the Hayden Miller record, it's going to be a to-do, unless he gets signed and then there's money behind it or whatever. So it wasn't a consideration to like, well, we got to play this live,
Yeah.
We're just making the most fun thing that we can and trying to serve the song the best we can, to where the song gets from A to B in a logical way that keeps people really interested and, shows him in the best light, and it doesn't sound local, those types, it sounds professional.
Yeah. I think, well, and I don't disagree with any of that. I was just curious. I have my own perspectives on it, and they change, I feel like, every year, how I feel about that topic. Because, we'll stay on that Hayden Miller record, for instance.
Okay.
That record just sounds epic.
Oh, thanks.
It sounds big, like you said. I don't know that I can picture that being played at the 250-seat club. You know, whereas like Ozzy Osbourne just did his Black Sabbath farewell concert. Did you see that? And it's this huge.
I saw clips.
You see clips, yeah. It's this huge thing in Birmingham, and there was that clip going around from that artist Youngblood where he's covering the Black Sabbath song "Changes."
Yeah,
and he's just doing these epic, huge vocals, and so now there's this whole new generation of probably like old rockers who loved Black Sabbath who are now like, who's this Youngblood guy? You know, and that's all great, right?
Yeah.
But when I see that, I think about artists like Hayden. It's like, yeah, this record feels like it was kind of meant to be played in a stadium, but I don't know how we get Hayden to a stadium right now.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but don't you want to see that in front of 10,000 people that know Hayden's songs? It's like that record feels like it's made for those big moments in those things. And
yeah, absolutely.
And so
that's what was fun about last night, doing the Finches thing. That's the show that needed to happen for that record. You know, we needed these visuals and 360 with space going around, and we needed that for the record. That's what in playing that record with, you know, in that environment was what that record needed. It's what that should have been the release. But yeah, you're right with Hayden. Yeah, I mean it's
like I get you just get these visions of like, wow, you know, almost again, like maybe it's because there is that little Queen guitar sound, which you think, is this supposed to be in front of 100,000 people right now?
Absolutely. Well, to even pull off the orchestrated guitar parts, you'd have to hire 4 guitar players to do it. I mean, even if Hayden and I, or I'm sorry, if Nolan and I were doing it together, it would take months of rehearsal to pull it off, and you know we'd still be missing parts.
This is when I wish I was a billionaire, so I could just go, hey, we're going to spend months setting this up just because I want to see this one show, and we're going to invite the whole town to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's what it deserved, really. But and it's just, you know,
what do you think are the stepping stones? Not necessarily just Hayden, but what do you think the stepping stones are on local areas to help? I mean, my personal thought, which I've never been able to confirm with someone, you know, is this right, wrong, whatever, but I just feel like it's like we know how to make a decent local scene, but then we miss some steps in that middle ground to kind of propel people up. And now that labels are less and less important, it feels like that is great, but it also makes a harder path of like, well, how do you even solidify fans? So it's like, in your experience, what do you feel like bands need the most in these markets like DFW? You know, what kind of support would really help push them, because we get these great artists that kind of come and go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These great records, they'll come out, but they come and go. And we know it's like, this is a record that could hang on a national level if it had that exposure. Right. You know, but it comes, they put a year or two into trying to push it, and it just doesn't happen, you know?
There's so many factors.
What are some of the most important ones you think? Like, if there was somebody out there right now who had money and loved music and was looking, you know, like, should I start reviewing things? Should I start producing shows, or should I start a little label? Like, what do you think really helps?
Well, I mean, to benefit the artist, a label that cares about the art and gets out of the way of the artist, people that are fans of the music, that will provide real help to the artists, would be great. That would be fantastic.
What do you think? What do you think is like, you know, what's real help? What's getting out of the way? What are those things?
You know, I'm not a label guy. Yeah. You know, and I don't want to be. I think a lot of producers turn into label people. And that's really to keep ownership of the records that you make, because that's a whole nother ball of wax to. Once you make a record and say something does get signed, it really is just yanked out of your hands, especially if they go and re-record the record somewhere else. I mean, you're really just cut out of the loop. But so it would really help to have a label that understood the when there is a relationship between the producer and the band, to nurture that relationship and not fracture that relationship. If they really like what a band's been doing, then continue what the band's been doing. You know, they signed it, they liked it enough that, you know, they built something already enough to put money behind it. And so many times labels just go in and they just say, well, we know better. We're going to take what's been working. Sometimes they'll even replace guys in the band. They will say, well, all those songs, yeah, you got to a certain place with that. That's great, but we're going to have another writer come in and help you write songs. Or we're going to grab that singer and put him with a different band. You can just fuck it all up.
Mm-hmm. They're all trying to get their little cut of making a band and getting their percentage.
Right. Mm-hmm. So having a local record label that doesn't... Because I've seen it with local record labels. I'm not going to name names, but it happens time and time again with local record labels that feel like they're somehow tastemakers, that they're bigger than they're too big for their britches.
I have names in my head that I'm not going to say either, but those are some of the questions I want to ask with other people. And
they come in and they fuck the situation. They take a band away from their fucking producer, or they put them in a recording studio with somebody else, and then they start acting like, well, if you don't do it our way, then you know,
and they do it off.
Fuck you.
They do it off the most minuscule success. Yeah. Where they think all of a sudden, I know something because I did this. Yeah. And it's like, hey, that's cool. I'm not taking that away from you. But that doesn't make you some musical guru all of a sudden.
Yeah. You're not Clive Davis, you know?
Yeah. I know. I think about that a lot. I think...
I mean, you would think that local labels would respect that, because it's a lot of people that were in bands.
Right.
You know? And got fucked themselves, but no, they want to be the fuckers now, you know. And it's like, fuck.
Well,
man.
And I think they want that. I think they want that. It's not even power, because you have no power, but you want to be that person who walks into the local bar and people are like, oh, that's so and so who produces
total
blah,
power.
Blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't matter unless it's great. You
Yeah.
know, if what you're doing, you know, wouldn't you rather be like the person that's like, man, he got out of their way, he provided the support, and because of that, they hit it big.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's more than just clout. It's like you have this respect of the peers, which is always more important in the long term, you know.
Yeah,
but
great and successful are independent of each other, you know. And so I would love it if they were the same thing, that something is great, can also be successful, but usually, you know, they don't meet.
Even with this little podcast, there's been people who try to highball me like that in these weird ways. And I'm like, what do you think this is? I was like, I'm a person in a room talking to you.
Yeah.
This is not some huge company or anything. And, you know, it'll be something where it almost feels like a game, like you're dating. You know, it's like I've had some people reach out to me with their management, which is always really like, okay. Yeah, you're managed. Okay, I got you. It's like you can just message me. Like it's fine. It's like I'll give you my number. Shoot me a text.
I know,
but anyway,
they big time you so much, dude.
And then they'll book it through their management, and then 2 days before they'll cancel. We actually had this big thing come up, and we got to do it. It's like, okay, that's fine, and I don't make a big deal about it. But it's like, hey, if you book a date with me, I'm going to respect that date and honor it. Okay, I know you got family, you got a schedule, you got whatever going on. So we're going to do the same respect. But if it's like, hey, if you just want to look at it at this little podcast or whatever, that's fine. That's fine. But what I'm not going to do is be canceled on multiple times, cancel time with my family and these other things I have going on to come up here to be stood up.
Yeah.
And then what's crazy is like I had one person who, not only did they book it, but it was like no call, no show.
Fuck, man.
So I'm just sitting up here, I wait about 30 minutes, and it's like, well, I'm going to head home, shoot a message, hey, saw you didn't show up.
Yeah.
Hope everything's okay,
Yeah.
And inevitably, it's like a day later or something. It's like, oh, hey, so sorry I had this thing, but like, let me know when you want to reschedule. Yeah. And it's like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Oh,
like, I don't know who you think you are, but it's not that important. And honestly, truthfully, like, let's say it's somebody I really admire, if they stood me up in that way and it was a huge successful artist that would benefit this podcast.
There's a little leeway, but
a little tiny bit. But even then it's like, hey man, I don't care how famous you are. You got to respect someone. If you set the date, you got to keep it.
Right.
I'm not going to, because what kind of conversation would that be if we don't have mutual respect for each other?
Exactly.
You don't respect me. You think it's worth wasting my time. Now I'm a little frustrated with you, and I don't respect you.
Yeah.
What's going to happen here?
If you throw the fastball questions at them,
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I wouldn't want to sit down across from somebody with that kind of weird tension already.
Yeah.
But
that's the same way with an artist. I mean, it's a little bit different. Yeah, there was a point in my career where I had to transition into deposits. Of course, at BPL, it was it wasn't just me; it was the studio, and so you did get deposits with BPL.
What do you mean? What's a deposit?
Oh, if they book time, they need to put money down. To put it on the books.
Yeah.
But once I started working for myself, once BPL kind of shut its doors, and Todd and Toby started doing some other things, and I opened my place in Fort Worth. You got to do deposits, and if they don't fucking show up, then then they lose their money.
Mm-hmm.
It's now I sound like a suit, but it's like, man, it's my time.
Well,
you know, it's like, and if you don't respect me, you don't have respect for yourself. You know, you don't respect your art. You don't respect the whole process. This is going to be worth my time.
I'm very thankful I went through that audio engineering school.
Yeah.
Just to understand a little bit of the studio of like, hey, I know you think it's just 4 walls and some microphones and some equipment. Yeah. But it's like, just to make a wonderful room to record in, you know, the budget for that, it can be insane.
It can be.
You know, I mean, you can do it on a budget, but it's just little things that people don't even think about from just, I need to be in a spot that does not pick up any outside noise from the street.
Right.
That when I know the ambulance goes by, we're not going to hear the siren.
Right.
And it's like, that could be thousands of dollars in itself.
Exactly.
Just to get that done. And we haven't even gotten to the fun equipment that we want to record music with, you know?
Right.
And so, no, it's like, it does sound like, oh, you know, he's all about the money. It's like, hey, man, if I don't worry a little bit about the money, the studio's gone. And then you got nowhere to work. You know,
woe is not me, that's for sure. Well, but you know, it is. I am living month to month on this. I go session to session, and if there's a stretch of 2 weeks where I'm not booked, I'm fucking sweating it. And then all of a sudden, I'll be booked for 2 or 3 months, and be like, "Well, man, I'm doing great." And then the minute that I don't get a call for 2 weeks, I'm sweating it again. I'm worried that, like, did I even choose the correct career path? This is 20 years into the damn thing, you know? And I mean, it's just not like other jobs. But I'm not saying the like, woe is me. I'm you know, my life is terrible, because it's not. I've had a lot of opportunities and all that stuff. But you got to take the opportunities when they come, and then if you're on the other side of it, you got to respect the people that you're working with.
Yeah, because even on the deposits, it's like, it would be easy to think like, oh, great, so he just made this money for doing nothing.
Yeah, he just took my money.
Like, it's like, but dude, you know what he would have rather have done? He would have rather have made the rest of the money off that deposit and make a record,
right,
and hang out with some cool people. It's like, yeah, the money. Sure, he got some free money essentially, but
I mean, I didn't really. I mean, that's I could have been working with somebody else.
Could have been making a little more money, and you could have been doing what you want to do, which is make records. Yeah, you know. So it's like it's a little money, but it's not the outcome he wanted either.
There's a lot of times that somebody wants to, like an artist that I've been wanting to work with. We're trying to set up dates, and there's just not the open spot for them in the time that's open for them, and they work with somebody else, and it's like, damn it, I missed that. You know, I missed that one. Now, that's a problem when the people that booked you cancel. You know, and you're like, fuck, I could have done this. You know, so it's not just that I'm losing out on the extra money that I would have made. It's that I'm losing out on other opportunities too.
We set this
cool.
up. Yeah. I turned down other things because this was here, and now it's not here. Yeah. And now I'm not getting to do any work.
Yeah. Well, now, you know, I talk about labels as being this evil thing, and but a lot of the times, you know, bands shoot themselves in the foot, you know, by not doing the things that they need to do to promote their records. Now, if you're not interested in promoting your record and you just want to make it for the art, I'm down with that too. I'm totally down with that. Because that's really why I do it, you know. I want to make a proud record, but if the idea is that you're thinking that you're going to get famous, then you do have to go down some of the roads.
You're going to have to play the game.
You're going to have to play some of the game. Now, you should play it your way, you know, and then when someone comes in and is trying to sweet talk you, and, you know, you need to keep your head about you and try to figure out what's the end game here. Do I want to continue making records the way I want to make them? Or do I want to be chewed up and spat out, you know? And because, man, if you've never had $15,000 in your bank account, someone coming in and saying, we're going to spend $150,000 on you, that's a whole hell of a lot of money, you know? But $150,000 doesn't go very far as promoting a record,
right?
You know? And especially if it's on, you're going to pay all that money back anyway. You know, you just got to be thinking about these things. Like, you know, you don't want to throw away an opportunity, but you just want to make it as good as possible for yourself. And then if a label isn't even involved, which is 90% of the time anyway, then you need to be constantly figuring out, if your idea is to get famous and get big, then the artist needs to figure out and work those avenues to get their spins up, which will drive their shows, you know, and their guarantees at the shows, which is really how they're going to be able to pay for everything themselves and pay for the studio, which again, I'm going to tell you, studio cost, or at least on my end, hasn't changed in 20 years. You know, like when someone went into BPL 20 years ago, the daily rate that they were paying at BPL is pretty close to the daily rate that I get. And that's because it's moved from a commercial rent, you know, a commercial studio that you have a $5,000 a month, you know, rent in a $2,000 a month electricity bill, and you know all this stuff, all this overhead, and you got to pay these people. It's turned from that into a one person, you know. Whereas when I started out, it was you had to pay for the studio, you had to pay for an engineer and a producer, you know, and now it's all kind of one man situation. So records and the availability of good gear and editing software and all that stuff has made it to where making a record has not been cheaper than it is now. To make a quality record, it has not been cheaper than it is now to do. Now, labels can still spend $200,000 making a record by doing all the things that they think they should be doing. You know, renting 6 drum kits at SAR, you know, renting a studio at $1,000 a day, paying a producer $50,000 before he even walks in the door. You're doing it the old school way. They can tally up that, but you can come, you know, to me, for instance, and get a record done very affordably and have someone that really cares about your sound and wants to make the record that you want to make. And I'll provide my expertise in saying, hey, you want to avoid doing this, or hey, I think we should probably do something like this, you know, so that the songs can go from A to B. It makes sense. And I want you to be proud enough to show this to your kids, you know, in 10 years. You know, I don't want you to be like, because God, so many people have come to me and I ask them about their previous recording experiences, and they say, we spent a shit ton of money and I don't want to listen to that record. And I just can't believe that people are led down that path into spending a shitload of money for a record they don't want to listen to. And that's not a label doing that. It's independent producers.
What, we got it done.
It's infuriating.
It's done. We made the record. What are you talking about, guys?
Yeah. It's so important to me that a band loves what they've done, you know, and wants to promote it. Because if they don't want to promote it, no one's going to fucking hear it.
Yeah. You know? Nobody wants to come out of a studio feeling like it was a lose-lose. You know, that's got to be.
No, I don't bat 1,000 every time, but that's the goal.
You try.
You know? Yeah.
You try. Yeah. Everybody has an off day, but you're trying to give your best is all that matters. I know it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to convince people. Like, you know, I really do feel this way, and it's like I think there are some big famous examples. I think the most famous example would be a guy like Jack White, where it's like a lot of the things he's done in the past, in the moment, looked like horrible business decisions.
Yeah.
You know, and I think people have to think that way if you're talking about music. It's like, as long as it's not going to put you out on the street, don't worry about like how much money is this going to make at the moment. You know, really do think about like if it's a record, if it's a live show, if it's a tour, whatever you're doing, it's like, do I enjoy it? Is it what I want to do? Then like, yeah, let's try it, you know, because I'll think about the way he ran a lot of his stuff with Third Man Records, for instance, or even just, you know, even the White Stripes at the time. I was like, that's a very different style band, you know, and very polarizing, you know, which in music a lot of times is great, you know. And
you can tell he wanted to get it out of the hands of the suits as soon as possible and get his control over every aspect of it as possible.
I think he was a huge catalyst. I know there are other players, but I think he was a huge catalyst for the vinyl resurgence. Absolutely. Buying up plants and doing, you know, he's pressing records when it's not very profitable. He's buying machines that it's too expensive to fix and all. You know, and it's like you got to do these things to nurture the craft if you want it to be around. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know if I'm assuming he's making money off Third Man Records now, right? Yeah. But I'm sure there were years where it wasn't making a lot of money. Yeah. And that if you just looked at it from a business standpoint, it would have been like, Jack, come on, you're blowing through your cash. What are you doing? Yeah. You know? Yeah. And it's like, no, this is important. Something as stupid as, you know, one of his locations, they've got that vintage recording booth. Yeah. You know, where you can walk in with your guitar and pay, I don't know, whatever they charge, $20 or something, and you can cut a live record. However, and it's like, man, that seems gimmicky. It is gimmicky, right? But like when my son's a little older, if he gets
Yeah.
into music and we can take a trip to Nashville or Detroit, whichever location it
Yeah.
is, and he can take his guitar and we can record a song in a little booth like that.
Yeah.
Did we not maybe just hook him on music?
Yeah.
And did we maybe not hook him as like a Third Man Records guy? It's like,
Yeah.
that place was so incredible. Maybe I should buy some records from there. And
Yeah.
it's like these experiences in music, you know, like you were saying, you just go to Half Price Books,
Yeah.
snag some records.
Yeah.
And it's like those are core memories of music where
Yeah.
you can go, you see a piece of album art that's interesting and you go,
Yeah.
well, it's only $2. I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
You know, or I remember hearing somebody 6 months ago talk about this. I should give this a listen.
Yeah.
You know, and just taking a chance on those things. It's like, yeah, you might throw away $2 on a record that's trash and you'll never listen to it again. But,
Yeah.
oh, well, you know,
Yeah.
you're going to
No,
find a
it's-
couple gems eventually that you're going to be like, thank God.
There's always something
Yeah.
that you get. I remember hearing something about there's those bands like it's so stupid, but Metallica, you know, they did a covers thing and they played
I love the covers albums.
yeah, well, they had a song called "Bread Fan," and I was like, "What the hell is that? Who did?" And so I went and bought. I found this band called Budgie, and I bought that record. It's a crazy ass record, and
Yeah.
it sounds awesome. Like, you know, and just that little bit of education, knowing, you know, and so if I have a metal band, not only do I have Metallica in my mind, but I also have this other band that I can, you know.
Metallica, I remember one of the first moments where I thought about what does this person listen to?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like when I'm younger, starting guitar, everybody goes through that Metallica moment, I feel
Right,
like, if
right.
you're a guitar player,
Yeah.
right? Where, because you realize, like, this is different than anything I've ever heard played. And then if
Yeah.
you think about the time that it was coming out, all
Yeah.
of it, it's pretty influential stuff. And
Yeah.
Learning about Kirk Hammett, you know, the lead guitarist, it's like I saw some little, back in the day, it would have been like a VHS behind the scenes
Yeah.
documentary, whatever, some
Yeah.
bootleg VHS. And where he's talking about his influences,
Yeah.
and and he's talking about how, like, he was obsessed with this band UFO,
Yeah.
and it's
But
like,
again, another record that I bought at Half Price Books
Right.
because I had to hear what it sounds like. You know, if you're a Scorpions fan or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like I grew up, you know, being a moderate Scorpions fan, you know, then I need to know, you know, some of the other things that, you know.
well, like NoFX, I'm a huge NoFX fan.
Yeah.
love NoFX,
Yeah.
and it's like even now that I'm past playing in like punk rock bands and stuff, it's like I find out, oh, the main guy, Fat Mike, he was into this band called Rich Kids on LSD, which I've never heard of. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, okay, so eventually I'm going to have to go down this rabbit hole of checking out those records just for my own, like, oh, that's why that bass line he wrote sounds a little bit like that,
Right,
you know, because
right.
he was into this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And it's the fun of it all. It's like you got to get into the nuance of it, not to be like an uptight music snob, but just to
No.
really appreciate music.
As a
And-
producer, it's important to
Yeah.
do that, you know,
Yeah.
because whenever there's a British resurgence, which happens quite a bit, then the same few bands get you know, and we talked about this, you know, already, but you know, same few bands get referenced, and you know, for the new bands that come up. But it's also good to know, like, you know, who influenced Radiohead or who influenced Blur, you know, those what bands came before that. You know, London Suede, or, you know, whatever it is, My Bloody Valentine. Like, even if you like My Bloody Valentine, okay, cool. Go down the rabbit hole of Alan Moulder and as a producer, and what you need to listen to the Boo Radleys. Then, you know, if you like My Bloody Valentine, you got to listen to Boo Radley. You got to listen to Curve. You know, you got to go down the rabbit hole a little bit. That way, you're not just trying to remake My Bloody Valentine.
Right.
You know, you can also catch some of these other sounds, you know, that are within that genre. You got to listen to Swerve Driver. If you like Radiohead, you got to listen to Swerve Driver, you know. And, you know, and you got to go back down there. Got to listen to all the Creation bands, you know.
well, it's kind of like you were saying earlier. It's like you got to get your kind of unofficial education of just
Yeah.
hours.
No
of,
one's going to do it. You got to do it.
of just
you know.
listening to music
Yeah.
for the pure fun of listening.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, you're going on a late night drive somewhere. It's like throwing something you've never listened to before,
absolutely,
front to back,
Yeah.
and just like, even if the song sucks, let it play through. Go through it once, uninhibited, and,
Right.
and then after you go through it once, and you feel like that was terrible. It's like, cool, you never have to listen to it again. But what is that one? Was that one evening, just in case you hear a song that kind of blows your mind? And I think what I've realized with this podcast is I have the pleasure of interviewing comics as well. And what I'm still learning.
I'm sorry, I'm not very funny.
You know what? Anyone who tries to be funny usually is never that funny.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
Yeah.
But what I've learned with them, and I'm still learning, so I could be off, but it's like they'll come in, they'll have all this excitement the first couple of years. It's all new, it's all fresh, it's all fun, and then they go through like the 5 to 10 year mark, and now they're getting good. They know how to do this. They know what the job is. They can go into clubs and they can perform. And then about the 10-year mark, they're all getting a little jaded because nothing's happened.
Yeah.
You know, and these hugely famous ones that are all multimillionaires because of comedy, they've usually been doing like 15, 20, maybe 25 years before it pops off for them.
Right.
And I'm starting to think that that's what maybe a lot of musicians don't think about going into it, that like you might spend 10 years and you might perfect what it means to like make some music that you like, but maybe you still at that 10-year mark didn't even figure out who you are as an original.
Right.
Like you're still just doing these pieces of everything and you're great at it. You're really good.
Yeah.
But it seems like maybe between that 10 and 20-year mark, you're going to start figuring out what it means to be, like you're going to take all of that education.
Right,
you basically just got your master's in this, you know?
Yeah.
And now you're going to take that into like, okay, well, now that I'm finally educated on it after 10 years of grinding, what am I going to make that's me? And I think it's hard to tell that to an artist that like, you could do this for 10 years with no measurable success other than you're happy doing it.
Yeah.
And that's really part of it. You know, it's like you see a band like the Black Keys, the Brothers album.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that was their big breakthrough. And they'd probably been doing it at least a decade at that point.
Yeah.
Touring around, making records. And that's right when people are going like, well, I mean, we stuck with it this long. We probably ought to hang it up.
Right, right.
And,
And that's frustrating when you see a band, you know, especially a local band, get on their third record, really start hitting their stride, and then it all implodes. And you're like, well, y'all were just getting going.
Yeah, it's like,
you know,
everything you've done.
Yeah.
And it's like, and this record that's incredible.
Yeah, you finally found what you're good at, and you're starting to perfect it. And then you break up, or worse, you sign with a label, and the shit that goes on with the label breaks the fucking band up. You know.
Well, and I see them all because they're more artists, most of them, which is good. That's why you're making what you're making, right?
Yeah.
But it's like there almost needs to be like a seminar of like, hey, stop getting mopey and stop getting like all, you know, nihilistic, like nothing matters and I'll never make it and blah, blah, blah. It's like as soon as you hit that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year mark and you start getting that like, yeah, I mean, we've played this venue 10 times and we kind of know the thing. It's like, dude, you're still getting on stage and playing something. Find a way to get excited about it so that you can kind of keep chugging forward, because that 5 to 10-year mark, that's every good band. Yeah. There's so few examples of like the 5th year they made it and they were huge. Yeah. You know?
But that's the story that the labels put out.
Sure.
You know, when I worked with Maren Morris for a really long time, back when she was probably, you know, I started when she was about 14, 15, 16, I don't know exactly, but up until she was about 21 when she went to Nashville. And from the minute that I started playing with her, I realized that she had an amazing voice and an amazing talent, and everyone associated with her too. Now, did it fit with Texas country? It did not. And not only was her age a factor, you know, Texas country wasn't really at the time focused at all on female artists. You know, maybe Miranda Lambert was the only one at the time. Casey Musgraves started hitting bigger as Maren was getting a little older, but
Casey Musgraves, even as talented as she is, that was a very slow burn,
right,
to become what she is now.
Yeah,
yeah.
But the but it was frustrating with Maren because we played every honky tonk in Texas, and we played every independent radio station, and you know, it was pulling teeth to get the Fort Worth Weekly to write something about her, or the Observer didn't write anything about her until she was huge, which all pissed us off to no end. But when she actually made it, I don't know whose decision it was, but it was a decision that was made that all the records that she did here in Texas were pulled. And I'm sure it was just a label saying, we want this to make sure that this is a fresh new thing. And so, if you were in Nebraska or whatever, and all of a sudden you heard Maren Morris, you would think, where'd she come from? This is a brand new artist, just flashed onto the scene. It's brand new, but she'd been working for 8-9 years before that, really paying her dues. And so, yeah, you're totally right. it. You need to keep working at it. If it doesn't happen immediately for you, you need to keep working at it. But more so than that, you just need to still do it for yourself, because if you're doing it for like something that's not pertaining to yourself or the art that you're making, then your happiness is just hanging on a shred, and you're going to go through wild, bouts of depression and elation, and it's all gonna hang on this little bit of fame that you're trying to get, and you really got to be grounded. I know it sounds like what your dad would say to you or whatever, but a lot of it is true because.
But maybe because we are dads now, it's like
right.
that advice, like the advice that I always didn't take, it's hitting so hard now.
Right.
Where you're seeing like there is no, like all the cliches, right? Like there's no quick way. There's no easy way. It's like even just playing guitar, right?
Well, the quick way for me was going out on tour with Cabrera.
Yeah.
We're playing the Tonight Show. We're playing Madison Square Garden. We're playing these places I'm never going to play again. And I'm thinking I've made it. I'm here now and I'm just going to continue to go here. But then that all fizzled out, and there's been a succession of take stock moments where you, like, what is real in my life? What is my relationships and my character are going to be the only things that I can rely on, going forward, because I sure as hell didn't meet anyone in L.A. that I could trust. And if I go out and I start associating myself with these people, I'm not excited about that. At the time I came back to Texas, my mom was going through cancer, so that was a take stock moment. And, and I married my wife. It's been my wife for a long time now, but I'd known her for a long time before then. And it was just a thing like, who's been there for me, and if your fame or if your self-worth is tied to these little shreds of fame that you get, these ups and downs, then it's going to be a really tough road for an artist or as a producer as well. Got to think of what do I have? What can I be thankful for? As a creative person, where did I start? Where am I now? Am I making a progression? Not like how many spins did I have then and how many spins do I have now, but like, am I getting better? What things can you I can't find the right word, but
yeah, can you look back on this stuff and go, I'm happy with that. I love it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite modern examples of a musician that's kind of doing that is Sturgill Simpson.
Yeah.
His first several records, they're good records, but he was definitely leaning more into that traditional country formula, not necessarily with his music, but just like promotion, playing gigs, all that kind of stuff, And it wasn't until, I don't know how the decision came along, but it wasn't until that record, A Sailor's Guide to Earth, came out where I really kind of respected what he was doing.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at him like, oh, he's another one of these dudes. Like, I assumed he was the guy with the cowboy hat holding the acoustic guitar while the lead player's over here, and half the time the guitar's not even plugged in, you know? Because the sound has been so, bastardized by other artists who were phonies. Right. That it's like I had my own jaded thing, which I shouldn't have. I should just listen to a record and listen to it.
Yeah.
But it's the way it was. And then we went to a concert, and I realized he wasn't that guy. My wife is the one who dragged me to it.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
And I was like, holy shit, this guy's like the real deal. So after that concert, I went back and gave A Sailor's Guide to Earth a full listen.
Yeah.
And it was, again, I put it on at the start, and it's like, I'm expecting this like, and all of a sudden it's opening with like a piano ballad.
Right.
And I'm thinking, who the hell is this guy? And we're doing, and then I realized he's made this concept album about being a father and having a son and all this. And there's all these hints of, Motown, and like there was these subtle, like there's a song, Breaker's Roar, where he's got this really beautiful simple acoustic guitar at the start.
Yeah.
And the noises they're making with either guitar or something else sound like whale sounds,
Yeah.
And it's all themed into this sailor thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, this guy's like the real deal.
Yeah.
And then after the success of that, he decides, I'm going to make whatever record I want from now on. So he goes on to make, bluegrass versions of all his songs. Then he makes a rock album, and
Yeah.
and it's like he's really not concerned, is this going to sell?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I've always wanted to make this music. I'm going to
Yeah.
make this music. And then the flip side is he ends up being this diverse artist that has fans from these
Yeah.
different corners that now want
Yeah.
to check out the rest of his work. All by just not, I assume in the early days, you're struggling, you're trying to get the paychecks, you got a wife. I mean, it's in his songs.
Right.
He's got a
Yeah.
wife and a kid and all this. And so he's probably getting advice from managers, labels. Here's what we got to
Yeah.
do, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't, now he made the money to surpass that at some point.
Yeah.
But once he surpassed it, it's like, yeah, dude, you being the original you, of just
Yeah.
being yourself, of like,
Yeah.
I'm a country artist who's going to go up on stage wearing Vans and a t-shirt. I don't
Yeah.
need to do the whole country act
Yeah.
because that's not me.
Yeah.
And if it is you, that's great. But if
Yeah.
it's not, don't ham it up, and
Yeah.
it's like, do I love every one of his records front to back? No.
Probably not. Yeah.
But I respect that, like, oh, hell, he made a rock album that coincides with a full anime film. Mm-hmm. All right,
yeah.
I'll give it a watch.
Evidently,
I'm not into anime, and I'm
Yeah.
still not into anime, but I liked that I watched it one
Yeah.
time and gave it a chance,
Yeah, evidently he has it somewhere in his contract that he can do what he fucking wants to do. Which I really want these artists to retain that. Because God, and it's some of the people that you've had on here that have worked with me and have signed with an independent label, and they call me up and they're like, I don't like where this is going, but I'm stuck. I'm like, what are they fucking doing for you? What are they doing for you?
So that should be the number one question. And that, honestly, I would love to have local labels on here.
Yeah.
As long as they wouldn't take offense to those types of questions. I don't know that they
just
won't.
have some gallows over here in the corner.
No, but literally, like, hey, if you made a label,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's easy to do either, right? That has its own downfalls, that has its own struggles.
There's a lot of risk that
a
goes
lot
into that.
But and at the heart of it, hopefully you loved music at some point, especially if you're doing it on a local level.
Right.
Hopefully you loved
That's
music.
what I would assume.
So we're the same.
Yeah.
But the big question that is very insulting, and I
Yeah.
don't mean it to sound that way, is what do you offer though? Like, what do you provide? Like, what are you going to do for me?
Right.
And as a label, you should be able to answer that question easily and efficiently and be like, here's what I would want to do with you, and here's what I think it will happen, and here's what I can guarantee. And if I can't guarantee that, then like you're off the hook essentially.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to do that.
No.
You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people overstep what they're capable of.
Yeah.
Instead of just being rational. Like talking about Fat Mike, I remember reading a book about. I was reading a book with Laura Jane Grace, who was in the band Against Me and now has solo projects.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how at the time, I'm just making up these numbers, so don't quote me on any of this, but like they were thinking about going with this big label who wanted to give them, let's just say, $500,000 to do whatever.
Yeah.
And they really wanted to go with that big label, clout, all these things. And when they talked to Fat Mike, who runs Fat Records, he was like, I don't think I'm going to give you that. I would give you this, and here's why. And he was offering them like $200,000. But he was honest about like, here's what I can do.
Right.
Here's what I expect. I think you need to change these things on the cover, but if you want to stick with it, then you stick with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here to be a mentor and give advice, and I'll give you a smaller amount, and here's what I think we can achieve with that.
Yeah.
And they made a good move. They went with the smaller amount.
Right.
They made a good record.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we could wonder if that $500,000 would have got them anywhere. But later on, they did go with a larger label.
Yeah.
And it didn't really do anything different for their career.
Right.
But you wonder where their compromises on that record.
Yeah.
Because it sounded a little different than your previous ones. Didn't
Yeah.
sound bad.
Yeah.
But I wonder how much of that was all you and how much it was that label influence. And it's like sometimes you need someone to go like, yeah, there's no way we're getting you into stadiums, but we think we can get you on this club tour and build up your fan base to this point.
Yeah.
It's something reasonable. And it's like, but that's what I want to ask these labels.
Yeah.
What
is
do you
it that you're gonna
provide
do?
other than saying,
Yeah.
I'm on a label?
Yeah. I don't want to take the
You know?
blame or the responsibility completely and put it on the label, though. An artist, if they're interested in making it bigger for themselves, they do have to do the things that are necessary. They do have to go and play shows. They have to continue to write and create songs. They have to be available for press. They have to want to, I'm not saying play the game, but there's things that you have to do, that don't involve selling your soul. You know, like changing your record or playing music you don't want to play.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about just the everyday business things that and it doesn't even have to be a whole bunch of business, but it's like, you know, do the radio interview. Do if you're saying, oh well, I can't tour. Okay, well, if you're a solo artist, go out and do it acoustic. You know, and if you can't play your song with just you and an acoustic or you and a piano, maybe it ain't a great song. Like, you know,
I feel like a guy like Matt Tedder is making good moves like that.
Right.
Where it's like, hey, there's no overnight success here.
No.
But I've been watching him now for a couple years, right? And it's like he is slowly increasing. Like you go to something as simple like as a Spotify, and it's like, wow, his monthly listeners keep going up. It's a nice little slow movement, but it's going. And it's, you know, and I don't think he's a guy who can just go nationally on a tour and just boom, go. I think he has other responsibilities that keep him from doing that. But I do see him doing like residencies down in Austin or something, you know? And it's like you're doing what you can to keep getting new, fresh ears on your music.
Yeah.
And it doesn't appear that he's sacrificing any quality for that.
Yeah.
It's like every clip I see, it's like, damn, that dude's still good at guitar.
He's
still
got his
singing awesome, you know?
Yeah, he's got his head on straight. I recorded the Polydogs record for him and with him, I should say, for him, with him. And man, that was such a great record. That was one of those things that, it was a bunch of veteran musicians, really, you know, Matt Mabe and Chris Luther and all that. Really great record. And but yeah, they recorded the record and they're broke up, you know, 6 months later. And actually or maybe not 6 months later, but we did a little EP. Those came out before the songs even got out. The band was broken up. But, you know, they were all kind of, you know, partying pretty hard. And so Tedder, you know, really, I think he kind of decided that if I'm going to have a career in this business, you know, then I got to, you know, take more responsibility, ownership, all the different things, you know, really take control of his career. And he has. And I just feel like, you know, on top of him being just an excellent dude, that the sky's the limit for him. And, you know, he's out touring, playing guitar with Hayes Carl right now.
I was wondering why these clips are coming out with Hayes Carl. I didn't know they were touring together.
Yeah, he's opening for Hayes Carl, and he's playing guitar with him.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he's had he had an opportunity. Actually, I'm not going to talk about that because I'm not sure if it's out there. But he had an opportunity to be the guitar player in a pretty major band that it just didn't work out. But he was right there that he was going to be touring, you know, stadiums and stuff like that, you know. So
I think a guy like Matt Tedder better off touring with a guy like Hayes Carl, even not knowing the band.
Yeah.
We like Hayes Carl. We've seen him several times.
Yeah.
He might accidentally be the person I've seen the most live because I would go watch a festival or a show and he'd happen to be on the bill. And then we would go purposely watch him. But where I saw the best version I've ever seen of Hayes Carl, we got to go down to Austin City Limits, the venue, not the festival, and watch. And by the way, you know, you see those performances there on like the PBS performances and stuff of ACL. But when you're in that room, that's just a beautiful venue, man.
Yeah.
It sounds great. But we got to see kind of a full, real Hayes concert. And again, you see it's like this guy, you know, whether you like him or not, there's a real love of that genre of music from him.
Yeah.
And so hearing a guy like Matt Tedder's on the road with him, it makes I have hope that like, okay, this is going to be also like a mentorship of like maybe he'll give him some advice on what to avoid, what's good, and get a little perspective that helps his career. That's probably better for him because that guy's been a road dog for like decades now. So you know, there's got to be some wisdom to impart, hopefully.
For sure. I think Tedder, he's no bullshit. Like he's got his head on straight. He knows he can smell a rat. You know, he can. He knows when things are good. And being in Fredericksburg now, he's actually more in my life now than he was before. Through a strange sequence of events, when I moved to Fredericksburg, I was worried about like my business. Like, am I this far out of Austin now? Am I going to have Austin people? Turns out that there is a community in the Hill Country, a very vibrant singer-songwriter community that needed a recording studio. So I'm filling the void. And but it's a lot of really good people. And this one really fantastic artist, Dan Dyer, who you should have him on at some. He's got the most amazing stories. But he is friends with Tedder, and they have a residency at a saloon here in Fredericksburg that just opened up. That's part of a hotel, a new hotel that opened up, all headed by local people. It's not some corporate thing. Matthew Pipkin, a good buddy of mine, is an ardent music lover, and he's an amazing mandolin player, and I've had him in my studio playing. But he is like curating this community there in Fredericksburg that Tedder's a part of, that Dan Dyer's a part of, Landon Lloyd Miller, Quincy Harper, all these people that I work with. I don't work with Tony Camel, but I want to work with Tony Camel. We've talked about it a number of times. But they all come through the saloon and Junebugs, which is part of the hotel. And Rich O'Toole as well, which is an artist that I'm starting to work with now, which I didn't know who the hell he was, but evidently he's a big thing on the Texas music scene, and, which I think is how he likes it. He likes that I'm not like, ooh, Rich O'Toole, I'm like, I don't know much about you. Let's make a record,
Yeah.
But, Tedder's a part of this whole scene. It's a vibrant scene that's all of a sudden kind of crept up around the saloon, the studio, and the hotel, and so it's really good to see Tedder now more than I ever have.
That's awesome.
And I have him over at the studio to play on records. He's such a treat to have as a studio musician. He came and played on Garrett Owens' record.
Yeah.
He did all that cool slide work on Hour in the Forest.
Yeah. He's a subtle wizard with his playing.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
everything looks
it's jaw dropping though sometimes.
But what I mean is everything looks soft and unassuming.
Right. It looks effortless.
And then he gets in there and you're just like, okay,
makes
dude.
you want to strangle him. Like, how are you so good?
So you play like that. I'm going to have to go practice to never be that good.
I know. Yeah. He's that guy.
You touched on something, though, that I definitely want to get into is what was the decision to open your studio where it's at? Which, by the way, all the stuff I see online, it looks beautiful, man.
Thanks.
I love the choices you've made. And just, I love the pictures that you're just like surrounded by this wilderness while you're making a record. You know what I mean?
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, I'll go back to being in Fort Worth. And I was starting to become a little bit more successful in Fort Worth. And I had a choice on whether to kind of move up and be a direct competitor with like Fort Worth Sound or... sorry.
No, it's okay.
Or some of the other major studios in DFW, or start fresh somewhere else. And so I made the decision to go down to the Austin area because I kind of felt like I wanted to cast a wider net. I didn't want to only work with artists in DFW, and I didn't feel like DFW had the best network of record labels and, nurturing environment, lots of good clubs and lots of great musicians. I still think the best musicians in the country are from Fort Worth, but I felt like I could be stuck in Fort Worth spinning my wheels, and maybe be the big dog in town, but not really spread my wings anywhere else. And so I went to, and not that I would have ever been the big dog in town, but so I went down to Austin, to the Dripping Springs area. My wife and I built a home there, and I built something there with a lot of the Fort Worth artists that I was working with. And same thing with Dallas artists. And Casey Hess was another one. Really enjoyed making his record. They would come down and work with me, and then I would get people from Austin to come work with me. I had a small community of players there in Austin, and so I started building that, and I soon found out that it was a destination studio, and I loved. There's this place down south of Dallas called Palmyra that I had made a record with Jay Quinn a long time ago, and it was a situation where you go to this place in the country, and you stay there for a number of days, and you're solely focused on making a record. And I really love that concept. And Todd and Toby were talking about, from Deep Blue Something, they were talking about Sonic Ranch out in West Texas, kind of the same thing. And so that I really just wanted to make a destination place where people could come and stay and be totally immersed in making the record and not be like, oh, we got to get to the club, or I got to pick the kids up, all that stuff. And that's turned out to be a good thing for me, because that's really what a lot of musicians and artists want. So I did that in Dripping Springs, and it was out in the country, and then during the pandemic, property prices were kind of going through the roof there because a lot of LA people were moving in. And I've got a crazy ass story that involves Joe Rogan, but I don't know if I should say it on the thing. But it was we had an opportunity basically to sell the house and the studio and make some money on it. And my wife is a school teacher, and she at the same time started working at a private school in Fredericksburg, and she was commuting from Dripping Springs to Fredericksburg, Dripping Springs to Fredericksburg. It was about an hour 15 commute every day, and it was grueling. And so we just decided, well, let's sell this place in Austin or in Dripping Springs, and let's do it again in Fredericksburg. Everybody that comes to the studio, it's a destination studio. It's not like hourly where people are coming over for 3 hours and working. It's they book a day, or they book a weekend or a week. And so I said, all right, cool, let's do it. So we rebuilt the exact same home and made the studio a little bit better. And it's working out, and I my wife's been super supportive, and really the artists that I get to work with, it all comes in. If they didn't trust me, if they didn't want to work with me, I wouldn't be doing it at all. So I have to thank them for sure. That's the only reason that I'm able to do this. And but yeah, so that's how I ended up in Fredericksburg.
I mean, it's an incredible area, though, right? I love that Central Texas area.
Yeah, I love Hill Country. It's, when I was a little kid, we used to go up to Utopia for family reunions. My mom's extended family came from the Utopia area, and my dad's extended family came from Fredericksburg. So for family reunions and funerals and stuff, we'd go in the Hill Country. And I came from South Texas, the Brush Country area. And I thought when I was a kid, like, man, if I could just live in the Hill Country, it'd be so great. Like all these rivers and the hills and the trees, and it's a little cooler up here, all this stuff. And so now that's where I am, and that's exactly where I want to be. Yeah. So
we actually, for no reason at all other than we love the venue and we love the area, we got married in Georgetown just for similar reasons. We were like, this is beautiful. And, when we were looking around in Dallas, every venue wanted, 10, 15 grand for something that you felt like made all these compromises.
Yeah.
And then we went down there, and I want to say it was like $3,500 or something for the venue, and you're like dealing with the owners. Yeah, everything was just you're in a town, but it feels like this small town Texas stuff like you're used to.
Yeah.
And I loved it down there. That's another area I would consider definitely moving to if our life ever did that. But yeah, the studio, like I said, the pictures I see, even the design choices of your I'm not exactly sure what you built, but with some sort of sound deadening with all the beautiful like that, it looks nice, man.
Thanks. I've taken things that I loved at other studios and removed things that I hated at other studios. For instance, BPL, Bass Propulsion Labs, again, Todd and Toby, I love them to death. They gave me I honestly would not be doing what I do without the support and the opportunities that Todd and Toby gave me. And it just sucks when people like hate on Deep Blue something, especially local old farts. I'm like, they're great dudes. And they gave so many people opportunities, including me. But at BPL, I loved the idea that they had so many guitars sitting around. They had a very not homey, but a creative, little bit of a bohemian vibe. It's a place where you sit down and you feel comfortable, and I've been to other studios where it's like a dentist's office, where there's a $1 million SSL and the lights are bright and you can't be creative, and there's no guitar amps. Like you're bringing in your shitty amp, They've got $1 million console and no guitar amps, and the priority is completely different, Like I would rather have a $10,000 console or no console and 30 guitars, because that's what you're actually making the music on.
Yeah.
And so that kind of aesthetic, again, Palmyra, the hominess, the feeling that you're out in the wilderness, and it's just you and the people that you trust, making the art that you want to make.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important. But yeah, building those, I tried to do as much as I could by myself, things that I couldn't do, like a lot of the carpentry stuff I hired out. But yeah, I built all the acoustic baffles and the treatments and all that stuff, just using things that I had learned over the years and the resources that I have. But
it's also fun that way too. Like when you, we do a lot of our own home renovations. Like we're about to have another baby, so we're changing a dining room into a bedroom.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And we live in the best age to figure things out.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you can go on YouTube and just learn. And
absolutely.
But then also it's like there's also that thing. It's like when I'm going to be sitting in that baby's nursery, like holding the baby and stuff. You look around, and you're like, man, I did all this, and it's there's that you're going to be looking at all the stuff you worked on, and it's like, man, my work is literally in the thing that I'm creating this other work in, and there's something. I think there's something good for those spaces when you're the person who put the nails in. If you're capable of doing it, if you're capable of doing some of it, I think there's something that goes into it where you just connect with that space a little more. And now every time you're stepping through that door to get some work done, it's like even the space knows this person, they helped make, create me and we're all working together. And that's kind of the deepest I get with that woo woo stuff. But it does feel that way. Like you just walk in there knowing damn, I cut that board. That board right there I cut.
Right.
I remember buying that board from Home Depot or whatever that day,
Yeah.
I think it's important if you can do. Not everybody can go build a studio, but it's like you said.
No, I've had many opportunities, and I'm very thankful for. So not everybody has the opportunity to do.
But there's the little touches, the baffles and stuff that you're talking about, where you're just like, I'm going to pick out the cloth that I really like for this, instead of just telling somebody make me one.
Yeah, Well, I looked at pictures of Sonic Ranch, and that's a place that I always wanted to work. Unless someone pays me to go to Sonic Ranch, I'm probably not going to set foot in the place because I'm not going to pay to be in somebody else's studio to do my own music. That's a big reason why I have my own studio, so I can at least make my own music, which no one cares about, but that's fine. And I'm fine with that because that is an example of what happens when you do not promote anything. Mm-hmm. What you have is a record that is really good and that you love that sits out on Spotify, and and it has that less than sign. Next to 500, that just kills you every time. Oh shit, yeah, why do they have to do that? Just put I have 35 spins. Just put it down. You don't have to put less than 500 or whatever. Fuck, man.
Hey, you said it yourself, man. If you want to make it happen, you got to do the things, right?
Right. And I don't have time to promote my own band, and I don't have time to go out and play for it. All I have time to do is make a record once every 4 years.
Well, you got to do the next thing, right? Which is now that you're getting settled in the Texas Hill Country with your studio, and you're starting to become a part of the local fabric of the community here. The next step is you start doing your showcase bands live shows, and then that's where you start putting your band on every time. That way, you know what I mean. You start building up your own little
Man, I feel so cheesy doing that. What I did for a little bit, my buddy Sean helped me out with it. Sean Russell from the Cutthroat Finches, who I've known again since 2000. Really great dude. But when I moved to Dripping Springs, I had this idea. I was like, well, I've got all these bands in Austin that tell me that they want to branch out of Austin. And they how do you get gigs in Fort Worth? And I'm like, you just call up, you can get a gig in Fort Worth. It's not a big deal, or Dallas or whatever. And then the same exact thing was happening with the bands I was working with in DFW. We're like, how do we haven't played Austin. Like, how do we get in there? I'm like, well, you just call up the people, And so I had this idea, let's do a music festival. I call it 6 by 6 at the time, because 6th Street in Austin and then 6th Street where Lola's was in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
So 6 by 6, and kind of a play on the South by Southwest too. But so I had a showcase at Lola's where it was half DFW bands and half Austin bands that I worked with, and we did the same thing in Austin, where it was half DFW bands, half Austin bands. Mm-hmm. And the idea was that they would at least get some dialogue together between all those bands where they could help each other play gigs, and there could be this open thing on I-35 where it's like not only are you playing Lola's and Dada, but you could also go down and you could play the Mohawk and you could play Scoot In or whatever it is. And what I would love to do is open up all of Texas doing that. It only happened. It only happened 1 year. We did the Lola's one, which was fantastic, and we did the Austin one, which was fantastic as well, except one of the promoters was starting to pocket money, and I was just like...
That old story, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't making any money off of it, and Sean wasn't making any money off of it. The idea is that we were just going to kind of build the scene, and I would promote the studio, because it was all music that I had produced and bands that I was working with, so it wasn't altruistic all the way. But I felt like it was... So I tried that for a little bit, try to get a little bit of community between...
What were your thoughts afterwards, though? Did you like how it went?
It was a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I'd still like to do that. But my band Shadows of Jets, we played on those shows as well. And I felt a little weird about that, like, because now I'm promoting my band too. But I tried to put us like early, like first in the days. But I would do it again. It was just a whole lot of work, and it really left a bad taste in my mouth when that guy started pocketing some money.
There's always some jerk,
Yeah, I know.
It's like the bigger it gets, the more of them that are going to weasel their way in, and you just got to cut them out and go, well, that person sucks. We'll replace it with a better person. Keep going.
Yeah,
but it does make you jaded because you're doing this thing that's supposed to be. We're all benefiting a little bit here,
right?
And then some person's now like, oh, I can steal from these people.
Yeah, the only money that I took from it was, I set aside, I think it was $300 for each band. Every band would get $300. We had a sponsor, and so everybody walked, which is nothing. I mean, some of these bands, they get guarantees way more than that. Some bands are lucky, to get a $50 guarantee, so... But I figured $300, just get everyone $300, and that's what Shadows of Jets took. I was able to pay, Luther and Michael and Taylor, and that was that. And
because everybody knows we're trying to break into each other's scene. That's the bigger picture.
Right.
Yeah,
and we're, but as it was, this guy started, literally taking money from the till, where I was paying bands out, and I was like, hey, you told me that this number of people came in and I called him on it, and finally he was like, the money all of a sudden just showed up. And I was like, you were taking the money, weren't you? But anyways, that wasn't Sean. Sean was very helpful. It was the guy in Austin that was fucking it all up. But I want to do something like that at the studio where I get a little festival going. I just don't think I have the infrastructure.
That's why I was kind of. That's what I was kind of inching towards. I was like, man, you got a lot of open land out there, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if the neighbors would be cool.
No, we do. There are spots, there are places that even outside of your little thing, or I don't know how much you want people knowing where your studio is in person, but there's always fun little 40, 50 person shows you can do even in your space or just outside of it that are not as rowdy and raucous, but still kind of get those goals. I mean,
I'd like to do live stream.
Yeah, I was going to say there's
things like that. How
long have you been at this location now?
1 year. Almost exactly.
Congratulations.
1 year.
1 year, man. That's a big deal.
Like August 1st when we moved in, so we're getting close.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like everything, you have the normal, we'll open on this day, and then there's like construction delays and all that fun stuff that happens with every project.
It was me. I was the GC. And there were plenty of delays, but I had to keep it on schedule because my wife, being a school teacher, she wanted to be moved into the house before she went back to school. She didn't want to move back to school or get back in school and then be moving. Yeah. And so that was my hard out. We broke ground like July 20th or whatever it was, and we moved in around July 20th. Like I set it as a year goal, and I had a company called Built Green Custom Homes that they were not the builders, but they were consultants, and they set out a schedule and a spreadsheet that I had to follow. It was a lot like making a record or building a career. Like, someone can tell you how to do it, but you still got to go and do it.
Yeah. Hard deadlines are good, though, right?
Yeah, which I think a lot of these bands and artists, when they sign with a label, or when they want to get signed with a label, they think it's just going to be handed to them. Like, you still really have to do a lot of work. The work begins then, Yeah. But anyways, with the house and the studio, it took a full year to do, and I was lucky to be able to do it. And I was fortunate to get it done on time, and then I was immediately booked in there.
That's awesome.
Peter Waringa from Fort Worth, a dear friend of mine, came down and helped me wire the studio, get the console in, and he stayed with me for a week, and we just buckled down and did it, tested everything, and and then I started to get booked. So
yeah, and then you
great.
panic when you hit record on that first session, and then it
yeah,
and then it works, and you're like, okay, I think we're gonna be all right.
Oh, for sure.
Well, dude, that's awesome. I mean, I could talk to you for a lot more, but I got to get going, and I appreciate you taking the time while you're in town.
Thank
man.
you so much.
Anything else you want to throw out before you get off here?
No.
It's AudioStyles in Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
What's the best place? How do you like people to reach out?
Yeah, it's probably just on social media.
Okay.
Instagram is the AudioStyles TX.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a Taylor Tatsch one, but I don't check it all that often. So you can message me, AudioStyles TX, or on Facebook if you're not completely turned off by my hot button political opinions. Yeah.
Who doesn't have one these days?
Yeah,
Don't worry
I know,
about that.
I know.
Hey, we're talking about music, all right? If you're not into opinions, I don't know if music's going to be the best thing for you.
Yeah. Well, it's all word of mouth. So chances are, if you're in the local music scene or in the Texas scene, you know someone who does possibly know me. So you can grab their number from them, or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to work with you.
Well, the work's coming out. That's coming out there is great. I mean, literally, the road that led you here to me wanting to talk to you was that. Every time it felt like I brought a musician in, they were like, "Yeah, I was working with Taylor."
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, I mean, how much more of a resume do you need than
I really appreciate
the records
that.
you like,
Yeah.
But yeah,
I love listening to your podcast.
Oh,
and,
thanks, man.
Yeah, you've got a great voice and got a great thing going on.
Let's just do 30 more minutes of compliments to each
other.
other.
Right. We'll just let's tell each other how great we are.
Yeah,
it's like
but seriously, safe trip back, man.
Awesome.
Really appreciate it.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.